please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
2,000 crore Reliance Pharma fund has managed to beat its benchmark, even though the worst of the pharma cycle is there. Is there more upside in the sector, and which are the winners of the future? We asked the man behind the Reliance Pharma fund, Sailesh Raj Bhan, who joins in. Sailesh, hi, good morning, and thanks for joining us on CNBC TV18. I was going through your pharma fund, which of course is doing very well now that the stocks have picked up. But it's been a very painful journey for investors with these stocks, names like Sun Pharma, Dr. Reddy's, etc. Most of them plagued with US FDA issues, pricing pressures. You think the worst of that story is now behind us?
Like you said, last 3 years have been very difficult for US-focused pharma businesses. And I think there is no negative news which is not yet played out. In fact, you have seen a whole host of negative factors impacting earnings of these companies. We think directionally, 3 years of difficult period, plus also now big resolutions on the US FDA side. You're getting plants which were under compliance issues getting corrected, plus also bottoming out of pricing pressure is likely, given that prices now have virtually corrected for 2 years beyond normal. And now we are also getting Indian companies getting new product approvals, important products getting launched in the marketplace. I think the cycle certainly seems to have bottomed out for the US business.
Sailesh, morning. Yeah, I mean, the fund has, even in the worst of the cycles last 2-3 years, the fund has outperformed the sector benchmark. I'm looking at the composition of stocks. I mean, you've got all kinds of companies: Abbott India, Sun Pharma, Divi, Cipla, Aurobindo, Biocon. So it's a generous mix of large US-facing pharma and mid-cap companies. Going forward from here, what are you most convinced on? Where will maximum money be made in which kind of pharma companies?
See, it is interesting. In the last 3 years, like I mentioned, the US didn't do well. You also had Indian companies suffering because of the implementation of GST, which impacted some business last year. So a low base has been created for that particular segment of the market as well. If you look at the US market, like I mentioned, the earnings recovery seems to be starting off, so it could well be a good cycle over the next 3 years. Even on the domestic side, which is actually a real long-term consumer story, where you would see that, unfortunately, India has among the largest populations of cardiac, diabetes, and thyroid in India. And that particular large base requires solutions from pharmaceutical companies. And I think given the increase in diagnostics and several other increasing per capita income, we are finding that the domestic market also continues to compound and present a good opportunity. Both these markets now have a positive tailwind supporting them, plus the longer-term competitiveness of Indian companies, which is well established. Indian companies sell products in over more than 100 countries globally. So I think both these segments of the market actually appear interesting. On a valuation basis, because the US side of the business has corrected much, much more, you could peg it a little bit higher than pure Indian domestic businesses.
But do you think it will be still a very volatile space for long-term investors, Sailesh? I mean, Dr. Reddy's, for example, right? First, they announced the approval of Suboxone, and now this morning we understand that there's been a temporary injunction order. So all of this causes a lot of volatility in these stocks. You think that's something that investors will have to live with?
I think last 3 years have been volatile, to be honest. I mean, this sector has seen very difficult times. We think we are coming out of those difficult phases. Please understand, some of these challenges which keep coming on and off to companies are a part of business. So they are not like, they are not necessarily, going to impact the whole part of the business, but impact small pockets of the businesses. And as I see, it's more a question of, I think volatility was a function of how deep the losses or fallen profits from US business would go. Now with directionally an uptrend possible, currency supporting these businesses, I think investors will look at the trend towards how faster the earnings will recover over the next 3 years. So in my opinion, the peak of volatility and peak of challenges are actually behind the sector.